Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional illustrator and graphic designer. And Sunday is the day we work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And of course, this Sunday is no exception to that. Every Sunday is the same thing, right? So Sundays is definitely the day that I spend time working on the thing that I want to see completed. The absolute most. Before we get into today's live stream, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button if you like to watch live creation videos, or if you would like to see more of these live creation videos. Also, I have a goal of reaching to 1,000 subscribers, so if you like what you see while you're here, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Today, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm feeling a little bit off. Right, I'm not feeling 100% my like jovial self, so bear with me, please. But if you would like to support me in my art and would like to own a piece of my art, or you have a project that you think I would be a great fit for, be sure to check all of the links down in the description. There's going to be some information there as well for you to connect with me if you like to buy some artwork from me, if you like, and to learn more about me. So this week, I hope y'all are having a pretty good week. I'm having a decent week. I don't know what's going on. Just kind of woke up in a mood. Right, I guess it's like that sometimes. Hey, TN lady, I'm happy to see you, and I just have not been able to shake it, so we're just gonna do the best we can. Now, before we do get into any of that, I don't want to go too personal, but before we get into that, I do want to show you guys some of the progress that I made on this card, because I'm really excited about it. That usually kind of helps clear things up for me, right? So on this card, the 5 of Cups, which is what we're going to be working on today, I made some huge strides and leaps and bounds in the progress so that we can go ahead and complete this card and move on to the next. So we only have a few elements left to do, but before we get to that, what I've done so far is I completed the floor, I completed the cups. So the cups were just kind of generic placeholders. They were the same cup, but inside the cup there was like some brown blob. Just kind of changed the color from the cups that I borrowed from the 2 of Cups, which is a card that we'd done several months ago. I think I want to say back in 2024 we completed the 2 of Cups. That was the first card that I completed on live. So I just took the cups from that because they fit this scene, and the 3 cups that our main character is looking at were the 3 that I finished, and I also put a spill on the ground. So I'm really excited for the way that this is coming together, and just kind of spending the extra time outside of the live stream space to complete this card. And so it should be, we'll probably be done with this week if I push it. So I'm really happy about that, which I probably will. So the only things we have left to do on this particular card is we have to do the stools, but because they are because they're the identical stools, for the most part I can finish like the legs and part of the cushion for one, and then move it over to the place where the second stool is, and then just kind of put the stool in that place so I don't have to do so much work. I will have to tailor it because the first full stool has a cup on it, so the shadows and things like that is going to look slightly different. However, I won't have to do like the entire thing unless I choose to, right? So I'm really happy about that. We also have the bar background to do, so I have to kind of give it some kind of something, right? I have some references in my reference panel for bars, so I'm not really sure which one I will draw from, but it'll have some kind of pattern on it just to let us know that it is a bar. And then from there we'll have our character. So I'm pretty much saving our character for last and doing everything else, right? Because people tend not to, it doesn't take me very long to do people. And I don't foresee this one taking very long. And then once we're done with that, we're on to the next card. Now, I also have the 5 of Wands, which is almost complete. So I'm super excited about that as well. Now, in this card, this is the card that we're working on Wednesdays during Bring Your Own Project. And I finished I've completed 3 of the characters, and I'm working on the 4th so that I can move on to the 5th, and then it'll be done. Only thing I will have to probably tweak or just sort of revisit maybe the cowboy's clothing, because I'm not really sure how I feel about it in terms of how it's rendered, as well as the clouds in the background. But it is coming together really nicely. Now, I spent last week working on the Ashanti character, who is the guy in the kente cloth. I finished his kente cloth, and I'm gonna zoom into it. I have the sketch turned off just so you guys can see how intricate and how much like detail there is to this aspect of the illustration. I really like it. Now, what I did maybe yesterday or the day before was, rather than have this at the colors at the full sort of brightness and strongness, I actually took the opacity down so it blends into the orange background of the cloth, and I liked it a lot better. I was struggling a lot with his face. Not so much that it looks like a face, it just didn't look like a face that I liked, right? So there were some things that were odd about it. So for instance, I'll show you exactly what I was working on in regards to his face. So of course I draw all kinds of, I always have like layers and layers and layers. So anytime I make any changes to anything, if I'm not really sure about it, I will do it on a new layer just to see how I feel about it, and then if I like it, I'll keep it. If not, then I will take it off, right? So I knew immediately the first thing that was bothering me was that he seemed really thin, right? So his jawline was very sharp. His mouth was a little more open. There were teeth and all of that. So to me, there was something, it was almost too strong for the image, because every time I would like look at the broader sort of the whole image, all I could see was his face, right? And he's a muscular man, and it doesn't look bad. Now that I'm looking at it again, it does not look bad. It was just something that was really bothering me, right? So to me, he needed a little more skin on his face, a little more flesh, right? So the first tweak that I did, and it took me a minute to get to a point where I was actually like happy with it, was that I added a little more cheek to his left side, right? I closed his mouth a little bit, whitened his teeth just a bit, and then from there I liked him better, right? I liked the way that he looked a lot better. The other thing that I had an issue with that particular character was the range in tones, right? So his undertone is very orange, which is in line with his kente cloth, but to me it was lacking some coolness, right? Generally when we do shadows are cooler. But because of the daylight that he's under, his highlights should technically be cooler, right? Now this is just me getting into nerd territory, but to me his highlights needed to be cooler, and so that was something that I added to him. Just some cooler highlights, not very heavily done, but something that was slightly brighter than the highlights that I had established in his face and in his skin at the time, and I just added those in, and so ultimately I felt a whole lot better, and I felt much more confident about moving on to the next character. So the next character that we're working on is this fella in the red tunic and pants. Now I know off top that I have him in black socks, so those who change to actual shoes, because the socks, I don't like how they look. I don't like how they look. They were pretty much a placeholder, but I'm very happy with the way that his clothes are coming together. And this was done simply by taking the base red tone, darkening it a little bit, and then just adding in where I want the wrinkles and folds and things like that to take place in his clothes. Now from here, I highlights just like I did for the guy who is behind him, and so we'll make it feel like his clothes are part of the motion that he's taking as he's pulling forward, and then we'll add his face. Now his face won't be as detailed as the cowboy and the Ashanti man, just because of the way that it's angled, but we'll give him enough detail that we know that he's looking at his counterparts as he's pulling this rope. So this one shouldn't take long at all. And then the final character will be the guy in yellow, and so before long we'll have this card completed as well. So I'm happy about that, right? I take that as a win. I definitely take that as a positive and something that I'm really excited about. So from here, the next two cards are going to be the Five of Pentacles and the Five of Swords. So both of those are cards that I have and I am prepared for the most part, and I'll show you guys what that looks like here in a bit. My development sheet, if I have it, maybe. Let's see. And I'll kind of show you, sort of get as a reminder where we are in the planning of these particular cards, so that we can move on and get this project as close to completion as we can this year, because next year should be probably the final year of illustrating the cards themselves. Now when it comes to the project as a whole, even though of course next year, if I complete 15 cards, which is my goal for this year, I have 21 left to do. If I could do 18 cards this year, then I'll have 18 left to do. So we're moving, but I also don't want to rush it, right? So I'm having to balance out, how I pace myself with the cards, but making sure that I am able to produce the project that I have in mind, because again, this is a dream project, so I don't really have anyone to answer to for it. It's just a matter of me putting together the project that I am happy and satisfied with. So here we are with our development sheet. So we're wrapping up these two cards, the Five of Cups, which is here, and then also the Five of Wands. Again, my initial idea was to have this be a ball of sort of like a knot, but I found that another tarot deck creator used the same motif, and so I didn't want to step on anybody's toes or be accused of plagiarism or anything of that nature. So we went the route of the tug of war, and I think I really like it. I'm really glad with the way that came out. So the next two cards are going to be the Five of Swords, which is going to be reminiscent of the painting of Kali, where she's like blue, she's very angry, tongue sticking out, and she's standing over I think Shiva. I'm not really sure, I could be wrong, but she's standing over another deity's chest to kind of stop herself. In my depiction of the Five of Swords, I do not want her to feel like she has gone too far. I want her to sort of really embrace that feminine rage. Right? So that is something that we're going to explore, but it's very much going to be a drunk on power, because that card specifically deals with winning at all costs, right? Winning at all costs. I don't care about my opponent. I don't even care about my teammates. We're gonna win because that's what we have to do, or that's what I have to do, that person who is the center, the main character of this card. So that is definitely the motif that I would like to get into. Whereas with the Kali painting, or the story of Kali, that specific motif, she has her tongue out and she's stopped by the other deity because she thinks, or she has gone too far, right? So she's gone too far, and her sticking her tongue out means that she knows she's gone too far. So in this one, we're not even gonna deal with that. I don't want her to feel like she's knocked everybody down. And so that is the image. So that should be a whole lot of fun. The Five of Pentacles, I had a couple of ideas. This was one that I was definitely stuck on, but I think what I'm going to do is go with the bakery scene, which is the first idea that I had. So we have someone who is looking through a window of pastries, and then we'll figure out where to put the pentacles within that, but they don't have access to it. So that's what we're going to be doing after we finish these two cards. So I'm really excited with the way that this is coming together. I'm really excited with the progress that we're making. So we're getting there. One thing I will say is that I can definitely tell I can tell my own personal artistic progress in this deck as I've gone card to card. I have certainly improved on my ability to do like visual storytelling, which has been a whole lot of fun. I go to, for those of you who guys are new here, one of my hobbies is just going to a photography club. Here it was just hosted by my local library, and so in that they talk a lot about visual storytelling through photography, but also through filmmaking. And so for me, there's quite a bit of crossover in learning how photographers tell visual stories through their photography, and then taking that information and adding it to my knowledge base and to my experience as doing that as an illustrator. So I'm really excited with the way that that's coming together. I do know, for those of you who are new and may not know the story of this particular project and how it came to be, this was a project that I started at the tail end of 2019, and it was one that I didn't necessarily have a plan for, right? So I didn't know how I still don't know. I have 36 cards left to do, and so each time I create a new illustration, it is a surprise to me beyond planning it and all of that. I didn't have an idea, or I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a blueprint, I kind of had a blueprint because it's using the Rider-Waite Smith system, but I just didn't have sort of a plan in place or an outline or anything like that as to what I wanted to depict for this project, or how I was going to get there, or like theming or anything like that. The only thing I knew that I wanted to do, there were a few things. I knew I wanted it to have a nod towards Afrofuturism. I knew that I wanted to have a nod towards science fiction, and I knew that I wanted it to be a positive representation of Black people in spiritual spaces and through like sort of your day-to-day life, right? both in an elevated sense and in a mundane sense. So I do get a huge opportunity to illustrate some of those. Hey, Draw Sketchbook, look at y'all. I'm so happy to see you. I do get an opportunity to illustrate those things through the minor arcana cards, which are the cards that we're working on, the ones that are numbered ace through 10. And then we also have the king, the queens, the pages, and the knights. So that kind of gives me an opportunity to sort of create the day in the life, right? As it pertains to the meanings of these cards. So that is a whole lot of fun. And what always trips me out is that I used to be a tarot reader, right? So I used to, I guess I still am to an extent. I just don't do it as much as I used to. But for a while I was doing that just sort of as a side thing. I did it as a hobby. I did it professionally to be paid. I offered it as a service. I still do offer it as a service. I just don't market or anything like that. But I was doing it, and I don't do it as much as I used to, but I'm still sort of in the mode of planning these cards. I just don't use them as much as I did at one time. It goes off and on. Some days I do, some days I don't. Some weeks I do, some weeks I don't. But what surprises me is my ability to be able to say, okay, this card still means this, right? And still have that sort of mental Rolodex of what these cards represent and what they mean. So I take all of that into account as I'm planning these cards, right? So my husband will sometimes quiz me on certain cards. He'll pull certain things and he'll ask me about what they mean. And it always surprises me just how much information I still retain about it, right? And I know that sounds real silly considering the fact that I'm actually actively creating a tarot deck, but I think that makes me feel good. And one of the things that I'm going to be working on, in addition to some of the artistic goals, is I do have a second Instagram channel that is Blue Lotus Tarot. So I don't know if you guys have ever clicked through like my bio and stuff like that on Instagram, but there's a link to my Blue Lotus Tarot page where I used to do daily like card pulls, and I would ask questions for the collective and all of that, just because it was fun for me, right? But I have been thinking about and talking about and planning for and sort of dreaming about jumping back into that space and then having the Cosmic Gateways Tarot bleed into that. So I'm really excited about that, right? So there's a lot of things to be grateful for, right? I'm glad to be talking this out loud because, again, I woke up in a little bit of a mood today and I just wasn't feeling myself. So to be able to express that and talk it out loud feels good. Right? So glad to have you guys here and in the chat and watching, whether you're watching this live or the replay. I thank you so much for being here. I tell you guys every week that, or I encourage you guys every week to take some time to sort of lean into your dream projects and things like that. To me, doing so adds so much balance, right? So even if you wake up in like this mysterious grumpy mood, right, or you're like just not in the best headspace, sometimes if you give yourself time to work on the things that you enjoy, like genuinely, I like doing this, even if it's just sitting outside, which I was doing earlier, just kind of sitting outside, even if it's that, you know what I mean? Just give yourself your time to be able to do something that you enjoy. To me, it makes a huge difference, and it does turn things around, even if it's just a little bit, right? So sitting here and telling you guys about my days as a tarot reader and all of that. And I'm gonna be real honest with you. Now, I know that a long time ago, I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember Miss Cleo. Miss Cleo was on TV, and Miss Cleo got into some trouble because although she was hired to be the sort of the mascot of this company, the company was doing fraudulent activity, and because she was the face of it, right? Think the Allstate man, think Jake, I don't know if it's Jake from State Farm, think that kind of character. She was depicted as sort of the head of this or the face of this company, and so when the stuff hit the fan in terms of the company doing fraudulent activity, she was the scapegoat for it, right? But even in that, even though I know that a lot of people sort of think of this woman as a scammer, whatever the case is, seeing her on TV, I think is one of the things that sort of enticed me to want to learn tarot when I was younger. Now, of course, I was seeing her much younger than I was than when I actually got my first deck. I was 16 when I got my first deck. But I will say that representation, seeing that black woman with this, even though the accent was terrible, you know what I mean? I don't know if the readings were real, but to me, it just seems so fun. You know what I mean? It seems so fun and it seems so magical in its own right. That is what sort of interested me in tarot as a medium specifically. Now, when it comes to like things like divination things like the spiritual realm and learning about all of that. I think I just had a natural pull towards it. So when it became time for me to like really dig in and study and start to collect decks as well, but just find something that I found myself in or saw myself in, not seeing myself was definitely the catalyst for creating this particular deck. But Miss Cleo started it, right? And I feel so bad for that woman. There's a documentary by the name of Hotline. It used to be on Netflix many years ago. I don't know if it still is, but you guys may be able to pull it up here on YouTube or whatever streaming platform of your desire. Just kind of look up, but it's called Hotline. They did a segment on her, and I don't remember her name. She's no longer living, but she'll always be Miss Cleo. But they kind of dove into sort of her backstory and all that. And I think they put out a documentary sometime later. I have not watched it yet. But that particular documentary sort of was an eye-opener. But it is a story that we hear a lot about. It is something I personally experienced, just being in a mostly white space and in the professional sense and being the scapegoat for certain things. So I could identify with her in that regard, right? But again, seeing her on TV in them commercials, I used to love them commercials, man. You know what I mean? I used to love those commercials. And then seeing people still feel that she was sort of the scammer who scammed all this money, considering now that she was the Jake of State Farm or whatever, Allstate, Stan, or, you know, the different people who are representing these companies in a hired mascot capacity, is really interesting. But that's how I got intrigued in tarot specifically, right? I also was one of those kids that saw a lot of stuff. I grew up in what I would consider to be one of the most haunted and spiritually active cities in Tennessee. I would say in the South in general, just because of the history of war in that particular space, right? So as someone who was already sensitive, you know, to people's emotions and feelings and things like that, I also grew up being very sensitive to sort of spiritual activity. So I guess I'm saying all this to say all the woo-woo stuff, it's just kind of natural. It's right up my alley. Creating a tarot deck is right up my alley, right? Doing tarot readings for fun or for like a side hustle or just like something to do is right up my alley. Watching ghost stories is right up my alley. All of these things, right? All of these avenues that I've explored and also been able to put into this project is stuff that I've been sort of into for a very long time, right? But as an artist, because you guys always hear me say that to me, art is a huge representation of the artist themselves, whether that is intentionally or not. As someone who has spent so much time doing easily digestible work, hey, Tia lady says I grew up in a homestead that was haunted. I'm trying to tell you about it. Let me see. Stuff like that always fascinated me, and I always enjoy hearing sort of my mom, my aunts and cousins and grandmothers and things speak about some of their experiences. And so I just kind of grew up in a spooky space, in a very spiritually active space, and as someone who was very sensitive to that kind of stuff and also very curious, it's just kind of happened. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm the perfect person for this particular kind of project. But just kind of being in this particular space, I feel like it's also that's where I was going. As an artist, I was intentionally making things that I felt were easily digestible, right? Because again, I was selling them at the comic book spaces. Selling this stuff at comic book spaces, and I didn't know at the time, and I just may not have been confident enough in my ability to express myself through my artwork at that time to just produce what I wanted, right? But sometimes you have to give people what they want so that they learn to want what you have to give. And so that was kind of the approach that I took once I kind of got into it. And so eventually I would create work that was much more indicative of what I wanted to see outside of the comic book and the nostalgia and the pop culture stuff. So I would do sirens. I have a whole Coven series that I did. I did quite a few other sort of miscellaneous pieces. I had a patron who would hire me to do portraits for his family. He would give me creative freedom because I had done so much work for him. And so most of them would be like Egyptian princesses, and I did a portrait for someone he had given a portrait to. It was an older woman who was smoking a cigar, and so she was smoking a cigar and she had like a cognac in her reference photo, and so I was able to turn that into her being in this like galactic space, and she had this like fireball, and so it just was able to at a certain point get into the things that I actually wanted to see. So for me, this project is a testament to that. Sometimes, and I think a lot of times, I ain't gonna say sometimes, a lot of times it's better just to create what you want, whether that is out of curiosity, whether that is out of a desire or a need, whether that is spooky stuff or nerdy stuff, whether that is robots or dinosaurs or dragons. You know what I mean? The list goes on and on. If there's something that you want to see, we wait and we depend too much on things and people outside of ourselves. Sometimes you have to be the one to create those representations of whatever it is, right? So whether you're writing movies or shows, whether you're producing documentaries, whether you're writing books or creating music or whatever the case is, sometimes rather than waiting on the industry or whatever industry that is to catch up to what it is that you want to see, sometimes you have to be the person that creates it, right? And so that is the stance that I have taken with this particular deck. Now, this has been in motion for a really long time, right? So we've been working on this since, I think my first file I found maybe a few months ago was in October. So I've been working on this since October of 2019. So it has been 6 years, right? So I've been working on this for a really long time. Across those 6 years, I have seen some improvement of representation, like positive images of Black people within this particular spiritual space when it comes to cards and things like that. But there's still so much void, right? There's so much there that's missing. And while we can take the stance to say, well, it doesn't really matter because so long as, you're able to use it or whatever the case, it doesn't really, you can go to the race doesn't matter conversation. But to me, it does matter, right? Especially for a group of people who are always represented in a couple of stereotypical ways, right? With women, they're the mammy or the over sexualized or angry or aggressive or whatever the thing is. For the men, anytime we see Black men in movies and things like that, they're like the Incredible Hulk. They're either angry, right, or they're like the jester, or all of these negative stereotypes. And when it comes to spiritual images, spiritual representations across the globe, right, the people or the beings with the darkest skin are always depicted as being evil. And that's not something that I find to be fair. And that is something that I personally wish to rectify, even if it's in this very small way. Right? So this just one project. It is just one sort of product that'll be put out where there have been generations of these negative representations. So again, if it's something that you want to see, and if there's a story that you want to correct or tell slightly differently or drastically differently, sometimes rather than waiting on people to catch up to those ideas to change their mindsets, sometimes you have to be the one that produces that thing, that creates that deck in this case, that creates that film, that creates that script, that creates that book or whatever the thing is to change the way that looks. Right? Because history is always going to be told from the perspective of the victor. So sometimes you have to sort of reclaim that. So speaking of, we got the Oscars today, right? So yesterday, me and my husband was trying to watch, of course, we huge Sinners fans, so I'm always rooting for Sinners. I'm definitely hoping that they win, over everybody, Sinners over everything, right? I'm hoping that they win in the Oscars, but we gave one battle after another a chance, right? I don't know if we watched 30 minutes of that movie and we had to turn it off. And I think it was because of the way in which Tiana was represented. You know what I mean? It was her actions, it was her choices, it was the story that they were trying to tell versus how women were treated in a Sinners movie. Now, those are two completely different movies, right? Two completely different genres, and I'm pretty sure they have two completely different messages. But I heard Tony Baker talk about it yesterday. He made a video about it, and he was speaking on sort of the difference in the movies, and I think he put it into context extremely well. Now, context, for context, I did not finish one battle after another. I kind of got the gist of where it was going and what it was about within the 35 minutes or so that we watched it. I felt as though with Sinners, and this is something that Tony Baker said that I wholeheartedly agree with, Sinners to me felt like a passion project, right? Sinners to me felt like someone who loved that particular culture, who wanted to represent that particular culture in a very positive way. It felt like Oscar awards and things like that wasn't even in the frame of thought when it came to creating that particular movie. It felt like a love letter to cinema. It felt like a love letter to hoodoo. It felt like a love letter to self-expression, to the ancestors, all of that. I had very positive, sort of warm feelings. So Tony Baker specifically used the word warm. He said that he felt very warm with Sinners. Whereas with One Battle After Another, it was the opposite sort of feeling. To me, I didn't feel warm. As a matter of fact, in the first 5 minutes or so of that movie, my first thought was they made a movie that they wanted to sort of go for an Oscar for. It felt like, right? It felt like Oscar was sort of on the brain, not so much creating a story and telling a authentic story. Now, of course, I guess the story was authentic. I, again, have not watched the rest of it. Maybe I will at a certain point, but I just couldn't get into it. I did not feel captivated by that particular story. I did not feel moved in a positive way in that story. I did feel moved. I felt all kinds of things watching it. I was like, what the hell am I looking at? Right? You know what I mean? I was able to put two and two together for a while. Me and my husband talked about it for a little bit, and then we read the synopsis of it and sort of got the gist of the story. But I did not feel moved in quite the same way. It felt forced to me. Right? So, but again, with a movie like Sinners, it felt more authentic and it felt more genuine and it felt more passion project oriented. And to me, I gravitated towards that a little bit more than One Battle After Another. So when it comes time to create, to me, Coogler created the story that he wanted to be seen that may not have been told, right? We haven't gotten hoodoo vampires. We've gotten hoodoo-esque movies. I would say, of course, Eve's Bayou, certainly Daughters of the Dust, definitely movies such as Skeleton Key. Even Skeleton Key, right? Definitely had very good representations of that particular space. And so even with that, his story hadn't quite been told in the way that he told it. But it seemed like something that he wanted to do because he hadn't seen it done. To me, that is the approach that you have to take in whatever it is that you do. And it's certainly the approach that I am adopting with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So before we get any further into that, I'm going to show you what it is that I'm doing. So I have a reference on my page that has some bar stools. I use these bar stools, the reference of the bar stools, as well as the look of the marble of the counter. Tied that in. I'm just kind of using sort of light and shadow from the bar stools and adapting it to the cups that I have on this particular stool, because I did change it. Anytime I work with a reference, I'm working with references for different reasons, right? Sometimes I'm drawing directly from reference. Sometimes I just like the reference and that's what I'm going to draw and paint and create. Sometimes I am taking elements from a reference and I am adapting it to tell the story that I want to tell. So for instance, back to Sinners, right? So I know that Sinners is, a lot of people compare it to the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. That was something that I had discussed. Me and my husband did a podcast on this, right? And they had to take it down because we had clips from the movie. But in that, we did break down or talk about some of his influences. There are a lot of different influences in that particular movie, but they are not the exact same thing. So anytime I am working with a reference, I'm taking the same approach for the most part. I might be looking at the lighting. I might be looking at the color. I might be looking at objects, right? Whatever the case is, I'm trying to find some sort of element within that reference that I'm using to pull and tell my own story. So as you are telling your stories, right, you want to make sure that you're using reference. Ain't nothing wrong with being inspired by and creating something that may even be similar to something that already exists. Just make sure that you are telling it from your own personal space and from your own experience, because anytime you're trying to fake it, anytime you're trying to force it, there's going to be somebody out there who can tell that you are faking and forcing it. So to me, One Battle After Another felt like they were trying to force. They were just trying to force it, right? To me, it felt extremely forced. It did not feel like a natural progression of a story. It just felt like something that they did specifically for this particular award ceremony. Hey, Montreal, it's good to see you down in the chat. I see y'all. Come on now, 10 latest draw sketchbook in Montreal. I see y'all. Go ahead on. But yeah, to me that seemed very forced. Right? And now again, they say it's a really good movie. I didn't make it far enough in it to tell. I kind of knew where it was going again, but like I said, I didn't feel the same sort of warm feeling that I felt from Sinners. But also I felt much more connected to Sinners because I could see myself in that, right? In the hoodoo practice, in the spiritual space, even in the sort of the characters. So for instance, the very first scene, we see Sammy, who is picking cotton, and then after his shift is over, he goes to like a little small house. He play with his mama a little bit, and then he wakes up his siblings. My grandfather, right, was the oldest of 13 siblings. He wasn't able to finish like a lot of his education because he had to go and work in the fields. So that's something that I could see of one of my grandfathers. I had a great grandfather who fought in World War I. Who to me reminded me a lot of the Smoke character. My husband reminded me of Smoke. Right? You know what I mean? They have the same very serious and stern sort of disposition and personality. I could see myself in Annie. I know people who are Marys, right? You know what I mean? Who have that sort of mouth on them, right? Who is going to tell you and not play around with you and none of that. I know people, I got uncles that were like Delta Slim. So, I could see so much of my own. And not to mention, I grew up and have lived in the South, in some part of the South my entire life. So I could just kind of see so much of myself and also so much of the things that I'm interested in that particular movie. So as the Oscars come on this evening, I'm hoping that they sweep. They up for 16 awards. I certainly hope that they get their just due. I'm gonna be honest with you, just because I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. I would not be surprised if they don't win certain things. I think that it will be a huge upset, but I'm certainly rooting for them regardless to how sort of it turns out. All right, so back to our cup and chair. I am just laying in light and shadow again, sort of making way for texture. Now, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to turn off the sketch because the sketch is showing me sides, right? So this is pretty much a rectangle, and so it's showing me one side and the other. In order for us to have this look three-dimensional, the sides have to be colored slightly differently. So I'm going to turn off the sketch to see if I need to add any additional details. I'm gonna do that real quick. It might take a second because this is a pretty big file. It's not quite as big as our other deck. All right, so that gives us a much more honest reading of how this looks. So I'm going to take my rotate tool, there we go, rotate it out so that it's upright. I'm going to zoom out and then I'm going to see what that looks like. Then I turn my sketch on and add on more details if I see fit. I may even lower the opacity of my sketch as well. So yeah, that's where we are today, Sinners, Oscars. I want to make sure that you guys, as you're starting your projects, as you're studying things, as you're sort of dreaming about changes in the world, in your life, in the things that you see out in the world that you have access to, I want to make sure that as you guys are moving through those spaces, that you are wholly authentic and truthful to whoever you are, right? So if you're not into certain things, don't force it, right? Tell your story. No matter how boring that may feel on the outside, chances are there's going to be someone out there who is going to connect with you and who is going to see themselves in the work that you produce and in the work that you create. And so that's kind of how you have to move. You cannot be afraid, right, of being of standing out, right? Sometimes we can be afraid of being seen. I know that is something that I'm battling myself sometimes. Even to this day, we've been streaming now for almost 2 years. I've been making videos since 2013, right? I still kind of struggle with being seen. I still get nervous about it. So for instance, when we were talking a little bit about making the content, going back to making, because I had been making tarot content and then I stopped for a long time, and then I have been thinking about that as well. Part of it is the comfort of that particular side of the things that I do is that you don't see me, right? So even when I do reels, you just see my hands and you see the cards, but I am sort of wanting to venture out and showing myself. So I actually have a second YouTube channel and everything. We haven't started posting there yet, but when that gets going, and it is oriented around cartomancy, so reading tarot, reading oracle, reading playing cards, and Lenormand or Lenormand as they call it. all of those things, though that'll be featured there. So once the Cosmic Gateways Tarot gets out in circulation, for those of you who want to learn more about how to use the deck, we'll be doing that on that particular space. I am just really nervous about showing my face. I don't know why, and I know that sounds extremely ironic. Again, I guess it is going back to the perception of tarot readers and things like that. I just saw a video. There's a guy who does breakdowns of like social media conflicts and things like that. There's a woman apparently who is on the Clock app, right, who was doing readings, and this was all her fault, but she was doing readings and around a murder case or something like that, which is definitely not even in my realm of interest. But she was doing a reading around a murder case, a murder that happened somewhere, child. I think it was Utah, somewhere, Wyoming, one of them states. And she named someone as the culprit of this crime, and she was wrong. Right? And but not even being wrong, she was not only proven wrong, but she kept doubling down on it, right? And so to me, you're already given a negative perception of something. You already got the negative stereotypes from the sort of the Miss Cleos and things like that from that particular ordeal. But you're creating even more negative perceptions by doing foolish things like that. So I'm just in my head. That's all. That's all. Let me just call a spade a spade. I'm in my head about it. But that is something that I think I would do just for the fun of it, not necessarily for business or anything like that. Just for the fun of it, just for the joy of exploring these particular tools, as I am creating the deck for those, or a deck for those, for that particular tool. So that for you guys who are interested in it, whether you're interested or not, maybe you're just kind of curious about how it works and all of that, that'll be the space for learning about that. So, I got some things going. I'm real glad that I'm here to talk to you guys, because I don't know, I woke up and I was like, I was okay, and then, my mood dipped, and I guess that's just a side effect of getting older, who knows. Child, but I was just sort of in a mood, and so I was like, well, you know what, I don't know that I wanna stream today, because I don't know if I could present my normal sort of self, right? But I was like, if I don't, I'm just sort of letting the bad mood win, and I'm only going to allow myself so long to feel it, and then it's time to move on, right? So here we are, and I am so glad to be here. So whether you guys are watching this live or the replay, whether you guys say hey in the chat or not, I really appreciate all of you all for being here with me and helping me boost my mood, for seeing y'all in the chat and watching me talk 90 miles an hour and all of that. So when you get to a point when you guys are exploring sort of your dreams and projects, if you guys have questions, or if you would like to just sort of shoot the breeze about it or get some resources, sometimes it's important to sort of speak on those things out loud, because one, you never know who's watching. But if you would like to do it privately, be sure to email me. I'll be more than happy to assist you where I can. I would love to be able to sort of watch you guys and witness you guys moving forward in your lives in a positive way, and sort of taking a chance on yourself and on your dreams. I always tell you guys that to me, that is, I kind of feed off of that, right? So I enjoy being around people who are trying to sort of elevate themselves, because to me it becomes motivation to continue to elevate myself. So whenever I'm not talking to you personally, I'm watching stuff on YouTube about self-elevation, or like watching people do their first art exhibitions, or just watching people enjoy whatever it is that they do. Sometimes it's art related, sometimes it's not. It could be as random as watching folks climb mountains, right? Or like complete marathons and things like that. To me, I get very inspired by that, and it allows me to continue, right? It kind of gives me the juice to continue, because motivation is one of those things, y'all hear me say this time and time again, you can't depend on it, right? You have to depend on your discipline. However, it is nice to have things in your life, or people in your life, who can motivate you to keep going forward, right? Or who can ask you, how is it coming? How is your deck going? You know what I mean? When it's gonna be done? Like I told y'all last week, I get inspired by the people who are like in my DMs fussing about it taking so long. And I know that they're doing it just sort of out of their own excitement for the project, and also just out of not understanding why it's taking so long. So I think it is a genuine question sometimes. But to me, having that is always sort of, I don't know, it'd be heartwarming in its own way, right? You know, having gotten to a point where that feels like I don't take it personally or anything like that. So anytime I am feeling unsure of how to move forward, unsure of whether what I am doing is the right thing for me to do, I'll hear from y'all, right? So I want to be that type of person for you to sort of pay that forward, because so many of you guys have supported me just in kind words. So many of you guys have bought art from me. So many of you guys have sort of recommended me in spaces that I may not have had access to just to help me out. And I appreciate that wholly. So if I can do that for you or do that for someone who I may not know, maybe we don't know each other, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Come on, let me help you right where I can. And then if I can't, then maybe we can learn it together, or maybe I can point you in the right direction. So if you have questions again about art, about your dream projects or anything like that, let me know, right? If there is something that you want to see on this particular channel, let me know, because again, I have some things in the works, right? So for instance, I am working on, or will be working on here soon, planning a painting. I don't know if this painting is going to be a series, but it is an idea that I had and I need to sort of get it out, right? Get it out of my head. And so I kind of want to show you guys the process of how I plan for like actual fine art paintings. Now I won't be working in oil. I just don't have the, means to work through oil paints is one of those things where you have to like dispose of the chemicals extremely well. There are chemicals involved with oil painting, so I do work in acrylic, so this will be an acrylic painting, but I'm going to show you guys how I plan for those paintings, how I stretch canvas, how I do color studies and all that. So we'll be working on that soon, and I'll also be exploring more about those acrylic markers. So where I did the self-portrait a couple of weeks ago and did some videos on that. I have another portrait, not a self-portrait, but another portrait I'll be doing Sun Ra. So I want to be able to see how I can navigate a black and white image with the same limitations of that pack of markers, right? Just to kind of see how I can, or how I will approach sort of illustrating someone who has a darker skin tone, who has a richer skin tone than my own, and doing that. So we got some stuff planned, right? They say that Jupiter, for those of you who are into astrology, has gone direct in my sun sign, which is Cancer. So that's nice. So hopefully that leads to some positive expansion and all of that. These last couple years, I ain't gonna lie to you, have been rough for a lot of creatives, myself included, just sort of trying to navigate how much things have changed. A lot of that has to do with the economy. People just aren't spending as much towards the arts as they used to. Again, most of my clients from years past were always people who were just starting businesses, who had never hired a professional. And so I was getting sort of those very new business owners. Now with the economy being the way that it has been for the last couple of years, and also because AI is such a accessible thing for a lot of people. Also Canva, even though Canva's been around for a long time, never really had an issue with Canva or anything like that, or like losing clients to Canva, none of that. But I know that for sure a lot of people are not spending as much as they used to, and also they have other avenues, whether I agree with them or not, whether I think it look good or not. Most of it doesn't, right? But I do understand that is for a lot of people how they are getting into certain things where they used to have to pay for it, or used to have to pay a professional for it. So things have changed a lot for a lot of artists. I have been feeling it since the end of 2023. Typically with the way that things work, there's always a slow period at the end of the year. That's just how it go. Right? You know, it's always sort of a calm down. You have the holidays and all of that. But 2023 was the busiest year that I have had ever been as a creative professional. It was the busiest year. I had a wonderful time in terms of like the diversity of projects. So I had lots of different kinds of projects. I was able to do a couple of things for the very first time. So that was really nice. So for instance, I did my first comic book 2023. I had done my first food truck 2023. So there was a lot of very positive momentum in 2023. Come, I think September or so, I was wrapping up my last client that was for a children's book. And I was in talks with another client for his book and was, in preparation for that. At the same time, I had become the Southern Regional Rep for the Graphic Artists Guild. So I was in meetings a lot and all this. So which was great because usually between October, I'll say maybe even November to like February is usually extremely slow. So I was like, it's a great time for the guild. You know what I mean? I don't have to focus on clients and things like that. I'm straight. I know that by the time mid-February comes, I'll have clients and things like that again. I remember 24 January, I had a consultation for a comic book for another creator in Baltimore. And then from there, it just bone dry, right? So I would have a project here and there. I would have, certain talks of things, right? Lots of consultations and things like that. There would be events and things that I think I applied for 24 and 25 for whatever reason. It just wasn't my years, right? And so it became very prudent and evident that, things were looking a little bit different. And that's when sort of it was like, okay, maybe I should look into the workforce, right? Because I had been freelancing since 2012. I've been doing it for a really long time. And I enjoy working for myself. I love it. I love the freedom of it. I love the responsibility of it. It can be very difficult. It can be very challenging as well. I enjoy it. I just enjoy being able to work on the projects that I care a lot about. I enjoy working for people that I care a lot about. I love working for myself, right? I love working with people, but in terms of like the actual business of like being a creative, I love doing that for myself. So anyhow, it got to a point where it was like, okay, maybe I just kind of change and reframe and all of that. And then I'm running into a slightly different challenge where a lot of people are going through the same things, right? And a lot of people are applying for the same jobs, and a lot of those jobs weren't even real. Right? So running into that. So applying for hundreds of jobs and doing all of that. And then it got to a point where it was like, okay, I got to make peace with it. So let me focus in back on the Cosmic Gateway Tarot, because 23, because I was so busy, I'd only done one card that year. 24, I spent the first chunk of the year sort of focusing on what am I going to do? Right? Trying to figure that out. And then June of 24, that's when we began the live stream, and the momentum picked back up with this particular day. I still have scary times, right? I still experience moments where I'm not really sure if I'm moving in the right direction. And then because I am a creative, I tend to have a gajillion. I always have like 1,000 ideas at one time, and there are so many things that I would like to explore. I just want to have the comfort of like the financial stability part of it, right? To be able to explore those things and not worry so much about stuff that I can't control right now, right? So I'm just kind of navigating that space. And again, I know that a lot of artists are navigating it as well. And so it's just, we're in really interesting times. But again, anytime that I sort of lean into this project, anytime I think about the tarot deck stuff, just reading the cards and all that, it just feels better, right? Than stressing over what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Of course, I have to adult. You know what I mean? I have responsibilities and things like that. There are things that I have to take care of, and all of that, and does get taken care of. But I just I enjoy creating, and I think tapping into that because I enjoy it so much has helped me, at least in the mental space. Right? Because it has been a very interesting and trying year, or a couple of years, right? Now things are getting a whole lot better. Opportunities are coming in a lot better than they were, and so I feel much better about it. Right? So for instance, being invited to the Civil War reenactment to take pictures, and that gives me an opportunity to get new commissions and to meet people who are maybe interested in the work that I create or may want something like that. I have a comic book convention coming up with the library in May. And so things are getting better. Things are getting better and better and better and better and better, right? Just took me a while to get there, right? It took me a while to just make peace with where things were at the time, and so that I can have room for things to get better. Because sometimes when we're so worried about what to do next, what's going to happen next, how we're going to get out or get to a space where we're comfortable, or back to the way that things were, or letting go of the way that things were, so that we can make room for new things. Those spaces can be so extremely uncomfortable. And so in that discomfort, sometimes it's difficult to see something better for ourselves. It's difficult to even imagine something beyond what we're used to and what we're becoming used to, as things are sort of degrading in a way that we don't want them to. But sometimes that rest and that respite, sometimes that stagnation, it's just there for you to rest up for the next chapter, right? So I feel like I'm entering the next chapter artistically. I feel like I'm entering the next chapter business-wise. It's just sometimes, get in your head a little bit, and I'm not real sure. But again, anytime I do, and I really go down like the rabbit hole, I'll hear from you guys. I'll see y'all in the chat. You know what I mean? We'll go live, and I'll talk it out, and I'll feel better about it. And then life goes on. So we have a lot of big plans for this channel this year, and I feel much more inspired to work towards some different things, also so that I can balance them out, because I have been spending so much time and so much energy on this particular project. I want to be able to balance it out so that you guys can see other art, have exposure to other art, so that you can kind of see some of the other things, some more behind the scenes types of things of how I think and create, and sometimes need to get stuff off out of my mind, and how I navigate that, how I navigate study when it's time for me to study something new and learn something new. The fact that I learn new things, right? Been a professional since 2008, but I still study and I still learn. And I still am open to learning and exploring new things. It's just that I know that the things that we've been experiencing in the world lately make it somewhat difficult to focus on that. But just a few minutes out your day, if you got 20 minutes in your day, you got a little bit of time. Sometimes it's much more prudent that you spend time on things that you enjoy than it is for you to worry about things that you just do not have control over, right? So sometimes I need that reminder for myself. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. So don't be ashamed or afraid that if your life is not where you want it to be, just start to work towards that, right? What do you want? Sometimes it's a matter of making a decision. Sometimes we don't know what we want, right? And if you don't know what you want, then there's no way for you to know what steps to get, to take to get there. So sometimes the hardest thing is to decide what it is that you want to do with your life. If you're content with the way the things are, right? If you're not really interested in learning and growing and things like that, that's all right. That's your prerogative. That is your business, right? That's okay. But for the rest of us, we want to make sure that you take the time to figure out what it is that you want to do. If you're not sure, that's okay too, right? If you're not sure what your passions are, that's okay. If you're not sure what you're interested in, that's okay. That's where you have the power of exploration. You kind of have to tune into your inner child, right? And you have to become your inner child again, and you have to tap into that inner explorer. That's when you start to try new things, right? So for instance, locally in my library, they have lots of different clubs. They got things that deal with technology. They got Spanish classes. They got all kinds of things, right? Events and things like that. Photography. As a part of my photography club, they also have filmmaker classes. So if you're interested or think you may be interested in filmmaking, where I live, that would be the perfect avenue to do that. They have festivals. We're getting into festival season here soon. So there are festivals. So there's lots of different things that are taking place. You just kind of have to be ready for that and look for it. It's there. It's out there. You know what I mean? But if you don't know, there's certainly no way for you to find the steps to get to where you want to go. So you kind of have to, that's the rule number one. Make a decision as what you want out of your life. Also decide that no matter where you are in life, you can get there, right? You can get to where you want to be. you can get to those goals. You can sort of, achieve those things. You can learn those new skills. All of that is attainable to you. You don't have to be a special like guru or anything like that. You don't have to be a part of some special group or fraternity or religious organization or neighborhood or family or none of that. You know what I mean? You just have to believe in yourself enough to try for it, because when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you just kind of have to be ready for that. There are so many people out here who are, we see so much of the negative, right? Even online, of course, especially online, we see a lot of negative. And we see a lot of people who are like, having negative experiences with other people. However, there are so many people out here who want to help you. You know what I mean? There's so many people out here who want to share what it is that they do with you, so that they can help someone the same way that someone helped them. You just have to be open and willing to be vulnerable in a very new space. All right. So what we're doing is we're just kind of tightening up the flats on this particular aspect of the stool. These are the metal like rungs and things like that. Now, to be quite fair and honest with you guys, I'm not entirely sure that these are at the right angle. Right, I used the angle of the reference that I was using. I just kind of measured from there. But just like we had some issues with the angle of the bookshelves in this illustration, due to the way that I angled the floors, this might also have to change. I don't know yet, and it may not even be that big of a deal, but I'll kind of look at that a little bit later. But until then, right, I'm going to clean these things up so that it looks nice and neat and clean, so that when I go to select it, as I'm adding details to it, it's not so messy. But right now it may be too far up. I don't know, we'll see. But this is how we're looking so far. Now this is with the sketch off, so this is exactly how the illustration is going to look once it goes to print, if I don't make any changes or anything like that. So I'm really happy to see the shine in the metal of the bar underneath the cushion, and I'm liking how everything else is starting to shape up. So whenever I'm doing this kind of stuff, I'm not really reaching for perfection or anything like that. I am just trying to get it as close to what I want it to look like, and then I can go in and tweak it and add extra details and things like that as I move forward. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to clean up the shape of the bar stools. Same process. We're just going to tighten up these lines, get rid of this excess gold issues right here. Looks like that's on the other layer, so we'll just erase this a bit and tighten things up, right? So this is pretty much where we are today. We've been streaming for about an hour. I knew it was gonna be a short one for the most part. Like I said, I had just I don't know, I was in a bit of a mental funk today, but I do feel better, so thank y'all. Thank you for being here so that I can get out of that. I'm thanking myself, good girl. I have to tell myself, good job, child, for doing that, for being able to talk it through and not letting that funk or that sort of not so optimal mental space to win and not stream. I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad to have y'all here again. If you like these kinds of live illustration videos, please be sure to hit the thumbs up. That helps me out so much. I'm gonna wrap it up here right while we have some good positive momentum going. So if you do like these kinds of videos, hit the like button. It helps me out a whole lot. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, so if you have not subscribed yet and you would love to see more of me, more of my art, please hit the subscribe button. If you have a project that you think I would be a great fit for, if you have questions or anything like that, there's going to be some information down in the description for how you can contact me and how you can find out about how to hire me as well. And then there are going to be some links to my shop, because of course anything you buy supports this channel. It helps provide time for me to do this, to create videos for you guys. Now be on the lookout for more art, like outside of the tarot space related videos. Do have plans for again the painting video, so I'll be painting a larger, it'll be a 24 by 36 inch painting. We'll be doing that. We'll be studying landscapes now, especially now that it's getting warmer, so that's really nice. So I'll take you guys on the journey of how I'll be doing that. So I have lots and lots of other videos planned. But I do stream twice a week, Sundays at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for Paint With Me Live, and also on Wednesdays at 12:45. So until then, I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. I'm going to keep working on this, so I hope to have this card done by the time we get back next Wednesday. But if not, we'll be back on this particular card, the Five of Wands, for my project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So until then, peace.